Hi everyone, I want to take time today to look at a game from round one of the Fide Grand Prix tournament that just started between French GM Maxime Vachier LaGrave with the white pieces and GM Chao with the black pieces. So it's a tough game, so we're going to get right to it. This game started off as a Petroff's defense, and Vachier LaGrave went right into um, some main line play here. Now, this line used to be the most popular line in like the 90s and early 2000s, and it seems like it's making a little revival. It was eclipsed at some point by this line, and you saw many games follow in this line right here, where uh, just for example, white idea would be the castle queen side and attack on the king side. And then you have many games in this line. A game for reference is Karyakin versus Vladimir Kramnik, where he won a spectacular game in this fashion. But there's many, many games, and this is still a popular line. Um, I think if Black Castle's king queen side in this line, however, uh, it's a little bit more symmetrical and therefore less dangerous for black. And I think that queenside castling kind of took, kind of takes a little bit of fun out of it for white. And I think players are starting to return back to this tried and true line. So d4 was played, d5, bishop d3, bishop d6. And there's many, many games on this castle, and c4 with the express idea of undermining the black pawn center. And of course, undermining this knight. This pawn on c4 is immune. This means that black has to play c6 to support this knight. And knight c3. Notice how white continues to put pressure on the center. This is all main, opening theory. Continues to put pressure on the center before black can truly fortify and get established there. So knight takes c3, bishop takes c3, and now white has this idea of isolating this d pawn and then putting more pressure on the d pawn and also utilizing these squares as outposts. So before white can isolate the d pawn, black captures. D takes c4 and b takes c4. So at this time, it's the end of the opening for all intents and purposes. Let's assess the position. Black has a very solid position. You have the pawn on c6, so it's similar in a lot of ways to the Yaroslav structure, except you don't have a pawn on e6. So this is a net plus for white because this bishop, excuse me, for black, because this bishop is free to roam. Okay. However, on the other side, white has some open lines for his rooks, easy to develop his pieces, and open diagonals for his bishops. All right, and he has won the battle in the center. Okay, he has good control over e5, and he has forced black to give up his control over the c4 square. And now white's bishop occupies that square. And white also has more space as he occupies 4 ranks to black's 3. But with all that said, black still has a very solid game. His structure, pawn structure, is pretty much perfect. But he just has to watch. He just has to watch out for white's use of the space and open lines going forward. All right. Let's see how the game continued. Bishop f5, a respectable normal move. Knight e5. Okay. A little bit of pressure here. For instance, this rook can't come out here due to the build up on the f7 pawn. Bishop takes e5. This is a critical decision as black decides to part with the bishop here. Okay, but in compensation, he splits up the white pawn structure and makes it a little bit more weaker. But on the other hand, white has a little more space now as this pawn goes from d4 to e5. Queen e7. So immediately the attack and focus on that pawn. So with queen c7, and of course knight d7 will be following to try to win this pawn from white. Rook e1 protecting, knight d7, queen f3, attacking the bishop, g6. And this does two things. Protects the bishop, but then creates a little space for the king if it needs to get out. However, with the only dark square bishop on the board, this could tend to benefit white, as eventually he could throw his bishop in on those weakened dark squares. Bishop e6 was an alternative, but if you're white, you want to keep the pieces on the board here. You have more space, you have this advanced e-pawn, and you probably make a move like bishop d3 with the idea of starting an attack on the king side. And then with all that pressure that builds up, black would probably wind up playing g6 anyway. So it's probably better, the decision he made in the game, just to play g6 right out front and keep his bishop on the better diagonal, so that at least if the bishop comes to d3, he could perhaps just trade it off, because that's basically black's general strategy here. He has the superior pawn structure, and if he can just judiciously trade down, then he has nothing to worry about in the ending. Queen g3, as this pawn was attacked twice. Rook fe8, more pressure on the pawn. Bishop f4, attacking the bishop with queen c5. Bishop b3, staying on that diagonal. a5 from Chao. He wants to knock the bishop off the diagonal. So a4. b5 from Chao. So notice also I didn't mention this, that black has a 3-pawn to 2-pawn majority on the queen side, and therefore one of his goals is to create an isolated pass pawn. Or excuse me, just a pass pawn. It doesn't have to be isolated, but usually when you have a 3-2 majority, you end up with a 1-0 majority. So isolated and pass by nature. h4. So we see the launching of some type of kingside attack by Vachier LaGrave. I don't think black has anything to worry about here. Bishop e6. So now with g6 defending black's king side, he doesn't really have to worry too much about bishop d3 now, as it's not as strong as it would have been before. Excuse me, bishop c2, before the bishop was on c4. So as you can see, LaGrave with the worst pawn structure is avoiding the exchanges as he should. He has the bishop here, and it is good to hold on to the bishop here, and just having the worst pawn structure in general, he should be trying to keep the pieces on the board. b4, great move by Chao, exploiting the fact that this bishop is unprotected and loose, so this pawn cannot capture on b4. Bishop d3. I like this move a lot, just pushing that pawn instead of just doing a move, like taking or something like that, which could just be met by h5. Then these pawns are doubled, and there's really no future for that C pawn. It'd be very hard. But he pushes him on B3. Now on H5, Li Chao starts feeling some pressure on the king side, and he drops his knight back for defensive purposes. Bishop H6, just like I said, white is weakening itself by playing G6 on the king side, and he has no dark square bishop to counteract white's dark square bishop. So that bishop is probably the most valuable piece on the board right now for both sides, is Vachier LaGrave's dark square bishop on H6. It is that powerful. It's just running wild. There's nothing that black can do to really stop it. So bishop H6, and of course, got to worry about the queen getting up here somehow and mating. B2, there's the counterplay. Rook A B1, got to stop the pawn. Rook A B8. Now here, Li Chao could have taken this pawn right here. Okay, there's no worry about any discovery because, again, discover check because the pawn is on G6 as opposed to G7 where bishop takes H7 check would mean curtains. So here after queen takes C3, H takes G6, H takes G6, bishop E4, queen D3, queen takes G3, I'm sorry, F takes G3, and rook A B8, trying to protect this pawn. Rook E2, C5, maybe this rook. Rook B takes B2. Let me just go back. Rook B takes B2. Rook B4. I think black is slightly better. He has weathered the worst of white's attacking possibilities, which were available when the queens were on the board. And we see that white's pawns are also in shambles. And this rook on B4 is very strong. White has a few active moves. And with the two bishops, I mean, he always has these dangerous scenarios where he can create these attacking possibilities, but they're significantly lessened with the absence of the queens here on the board. And that's as far as we'll go with this line here, but I like black's position better here. Instead, Li Chao didn't take the pawn with the queen on C3, but instead he played rook A B8, which is a natural move. He develops the rook, right? The rook has not been moved the whole game. He brings it to an open file, and I think this move is perfectly fine also. Vachier LaGrave does not hide his intentions of bringing the queen to F6 and checkmating. So now the knight comes back out to guard this square and the threat to being mated. Another interesting move that I uncovered looking at this game was bishop A2. The idea being that removing the bishop from the E6 square allows the knight to replace it in the defense of G7. And black is just clearly better here. Rook BD1, for instance. Queen E7. Got to get rid of these heavy hitters. Let's just say H takes, H takes. And bishop E3. Rook EB7. Bishop B1. With this double attack, and I think black is close to winning as he picks up this A pawn. Now, I don't have the timestamps showing in the video. I did have a couple of videos where I had the timestamps showing, and people were complaining about it. But the timestamps are important because if you could see what I'm looking at, Lee Chao, this is move 26. Lee Chao only had a minute left on his clock at move 26. Vachier LaGrave had almost 50 minutes. And I believe this is what contributed to Lee Chao not finding the most accurate continuation, which was definitely Bishop A2. Instead, he played again a natural move that you would play in time travel. Just you see the obvious threat and you find the most obvious move, which is knight d7. You're not thinking of Bishop A2 and then followed by knight e6. You're just thinking of the defense. This move, however, gives white time to maneuver. So he plays queen g5. Again, notice the consistent exploitation of the dark squares by white ever since black played g6. So now, this move, bishop a2, is no longer effective. Because now with the queen on g5, after h takes g6, the threat to open up the position here gives white too much time for black to do anything on the queen side, such as capturing the rook on b1 or trying to promote that pawn on b2. So for example, after f takes g6, bishop takes g6, and believe me, white is just dominating the position. So just that one move, that queen g5, prevents black from moving his bishop to a2. Queen e7, again, another move to, it's basically like a reflex move. Get rid of the mating attempts. Queen e7. And now, Vachier LaGrave goes into the ending. Because he feels he can just pick this pawn up. Which he does. And this is why he decided to trade queens at that point. So Lee Chao missed a great opportunity there. He was better, and now the tides have turned. And I attribute that to his time trouble. But again, great play by LaGrave. So the rooks get traded. Lee Chao picks up the e pawn. And bishop e2 is played. So now, assessing the position again at move 32, we see a lot has changed. Before, it was white that had the, the somewhat loose pawn structure. Black had the very solid pawn structure. But in compensation, white had open lines, two bishops, what have you. Now, assessing the position again, reassessing it again at move 32, we see white has the two bishops. The pawn structures now are pretty much a wash. Black no longer has a superior pawn structure, but what white has that he had before is he still has command of the open lines. Look where the bishop is on the c1 to h6 diagonal, and look where the other bishop is on e2, beautifully placed. And now the top dog is the rook here on b1, ready to penetrate into Lee Chao's position. It's not that black's pieces are badly placed. This knight is on a good spot right now, right in the center. The only thing is hard to keep that knight there. If white has to, white can always boot it off with f4. And black's bishop is not badly placed either. Black's bishop is beautiful. So, only piece that is kind of placed in that needs real improvement is this rook on e8. All right, and another issue that is kind of in the background is white's king safety. Although the amount of pieces have been diminished on the board, this bishop here is very annoying because it just cuts the king off. Very annoying just having the bishop here for white. Okay, so the game, I look at the game, it's pretty even, but white has chances, and that's all you need when you're 2800. You have like an even type position with chances to apply pressure on the opponent. In this position, I don't think Lee Chao as black has any chances besides an egregious blunder, any chances to win. That's not a chance that's not a position you really want to be in. That means you're going to be defending for a long time against a player who has the bishop here, some open lines, and nothing but time on his hands. Let's see how the game progressed from here. So G takes H5, F3. Okay, so we see the cutoff going on right now. Now, he didn't bother to play bishop takes H5 here. He could have just restored material equality, but then this would play into black's hands after bishop G4. Okay, because now pieces will get traded off. Attack on this bishop, and now where's this bishop going to go? Go here. That doesn't work. Rook E1 mate. Okay. So the only square for that bishop to go is to D2. What's the problem with D2? Well, the action of this rook on the second rank is cut off now because the bishop is now in an extremely passive position on D2. Okay? Remember all of that great activity we had? Now look at the bishop. The rook comes down to E2. And then say after F3 now, right, to try to knock the knight out of there. Now you got knight E3. You got this threat. So, again, black equalizes. And this is what Vachier LaGrave avoided. So he just played F3. Notice he keeps all the trumps in the position. Right? This pawn is weak. You get that later. That's a good lesson to take into heart. Is you don't always got to capture. Like your opponent captures, you don't always have to recapture. Sometimes you can wait and get it later. That pawn's not going anywhere. Keep the position, keep the positional needs always ahead of material. All right. So after F3, the knight hopped back to D7. Okay, because black has some issues over here on the queen side with these pawns. Now white has the same issues. The thing is white's pieces, right, are more actively placed. See, white's rook is already on the B file. So white's rook is ready to move in, say for instance to B6 and then A6. So this is why this knight has to jump back to defend these squares. Meanwhile, the black rook is not in a position yet to attack any of white's weaknesses here. Okay, so they have the same weaknesses, but one can be exploited, the other cannot, and this is all due to white's activity. So there it is. So Lee Chao was able to stop the penetration to B6, but he can't stop the rook from coming onto the 7th rank. And I forgot to mention, besides protecting B6, the idea is also just to bring the rook over, trade the rooks off. So he hops in there before that can happen. So now we see this double attack. Of course, Vachier LaGrave saw it. Lee Chao saw it. Okay. Operating on the 7th. He stays there. And again, this is very dangerous because the king is cut off. So this rook can't really, can't just hop up here or something. I'm just making up a move. I know you get captured. But basically, the rook can't leave the 8th rank because he has to worry about being mated. So after rook A7, knight B3. So he wants to protect this pawn. He doesn't take. Now if he takes, this is bad news. After rook takes A5. Because this knight is in trouble. As you can see, you might not be able to see, but if knight B6, The rook comes back to g5, check, and again exploiting this lack of protection on the dark squares. And now black gets caught up in a whirlwind, right? This is called the whirlwind. Just keep doing the same stuff. If he kept going back, was able to go back to that corner and the bishop kept going back and forth with checks, it would be a whirlwind. But here, you just check and win the bishop. Excuse me, check and win the knight. That's how that would go down. Okay? Same thing, because we're still dealing with dark squares. Knight b2, rook g5, king h8, g7, king g8, e5, king f8, get back there, bishop d6, and notice this is all cut off. That means the rook has to go. This is why Chao played the move knight b3. Okay, so we had to go on a little tactical detour so you don't think that he just missed the opportunity to draw by playing knight takes a4. Okay, so knight b3 was played. g3. Bishop d5. Okay, now the sad thing about this move is we do see an opportunity to capture this bishop, but it's not even an authentic attack because, again, if black was able to move, if it was black, if black had 2 turns in a row and played rook takes e2, then rook a8 check would be mate. So it's not even a real issue. King f2, rook b8, bishop f1, and now basically Vachier LaGrave is kind of marking time here to see where black's going to place his pieces. Watch this maneuver. So you saw this rook b8, bishop f1, and now watch this move here. So now this bishop commits and goes back to e6. And now he brings this bishop to d3. Okay, this bishop is kind of stuck in limbo in that it has to keep an eye on this knight here because this knight is kind of holding this pawn, right? Kind of holding things together. So if this bishop's not here, then, well, LaGrave can basically maybe go to c4 and just snatch the bishop off and just pick the pawn up. And remember, it's hard for black to really capture here because of the mate threat on the back rank. However, LaGrave has 2 ways. LaGrave, gotta say his name right. He has basically 2 ways to attack this knight. Not only from here, which in this instance is covered by the bishop on e6, but he can just come back here. Let's see how Chao tried to deal with this. So he moves the bishop back to d5. He would love a draw, right? Bishop f5, rook e8, and there it is. So now he's faced with some bad news. What to do here? So he plays c5, and now it's a nice move by Vachier LaGrave as he attacks the c pawn now. Now, I want you to know that he could have just easily played this also. Bishop takes b3, bishop takes b3, and rook takes a5. No problem. Okay? And say bishop e3, for example. Now, one thing that you have to be mindful of if you're LaGrave is the opposite colored bishops here. So, for example, let's say c5 in the positions like that. Even though white is has this outside pass pawn, you have these opposite colored bishops, and drawing opportunities may arise. So Vachier LaGrave does what any good GM um, would do, is he tries to extract more concessions, more weaknesses out of the position from black. You can never get enough weaknesses. If you the more the better. So C4 is played. And now Vachier LaGrave goes to F5. And notice he doesn't go into their trades. He keeps all his pieces. All the danger is still there around the white king. And black is still saddled with weaknesses. It's not like Vachier LaGrave missed the train and he'll never be able to capture these pawns. He knows they're all weak. So he just continues to work on dominating the position. This is why I like this game a lot. Because he's not thirsty to capture the pawns. He just continues to improve the position. Rook b8. And you see the rook shuffling back and forth on the 8th rank due to the lack of protection of the king. Bishop d7. Finally, f6. So this gives the king a little bit of comfort. Now this guy gets cut off. He can't even do nothing because the bishop is on b4 now. And notice again the domination theme. Rook on the 7th, bishop on h6, the other bishops on b5. Notice all the pieces in black's territory. Okay. Bishop f7. So now rook c6, just attacking the pawn. And notice that when you dominate a position, all those weaknesses just fall like grapes. They just fall like right from the tree. White doesn't have to go through any kind of special, maneuvering to get these pawns now. Everything just starts falling apart just from the dominating aspect of the position. Knight on a1. What's the knight doing there? See, the position just falls apart, collapses on its own, and that's what I found beautiful about this game. I wish I can relate like how I feel about the game. I'm doing the best I can, but it's like the position just collapses from black. It's almost like magic. Again, Vachier LaGrave doesn't even bother capturing the pawn. He attacks the other weakness on a5. He goes back to a5. It's like he's just sucking the life out of this position. For black, that is. He's like a vampire. It's like Twilight, right? It's like Vachier LaGrave is like Team Jacob. He's just like sucking the blood out of Lee Chao's Petroff. Knight c2. Again, this knight has no future. Where's the knight going? The knight is on its way to the juvenile home. There's no future for the knight. I mean, he hopes to, in some universe, to come to a3, snatch this guy, win this pawn, and all of that stuff. And finally, Vachier LaGrave just snatches a5, knight a3, bishop just sidesteps, and he dares the rook to come down. He said, "Yeah, come and check me." He dares him to come down. He's like, "Here's an open file for you. Take it." Knight b1, challenging. And again, no disrespect to Lee Chao. He's fighting back, but it's just this is just a powerful game by Vachier LaGrave. Rook b5, because the Petroff is a tough opening to crack. Still, after all these years. I mean, the Petroff was like the Berlin Wall back in the 80s. It was like the Petroff was like that kind of opening. Like when Grandmasters wanted to draw, they tried it out the Petroff, and it was very difficult to deal with, to get a win as white. You saw that in the 1984/85 Karpov-Kasparov championships. When they got into those games, I think it was after game 31, because they wound up playing like 48 games, and they started, getting tired. They dragged that Petroff out. And it was just draw after draw after draw in the Petroff. And another player that wrote a thick volume on the Petroff in the 80s was Artur Yusupov. Okay? I mean, and then Kramnik got a hold of the Petroff. You know what happens when Kramnik gets a hold of the opening. Especially with the black pieces. He has that thing analyzed down to, 40 moves right out of the opening to a draw. So for Vachier LaGrave to do this, versus Lee Chao, I mean, it's an amazing game. Got off on a little tangent there. Okay, so after knight b1, rook b5 was played by Vachier LaGrave, and you see the double attack here, right? The rook is attacked and the knight is attacked, and Lee Chao resigned. There's no hope in playing rook takes b5. After rook takes b5, a takes b5, there's no stopping this pawn. Right, this bishop will come back here eventually and help assist the pawn in promoting. So, for example, knight takes c3 and just b6, and what you're going to do about it? There's nothing that can. Black just does not have the time to get his pieces back to stop this pawn. So, excellent game played by Vachier LaGrave. Excellent demolition of the Petroff. Black had his chances though. I pointed those errors out earlier in the video. Black definitely had his chances, but he made a couple of mistakes, and Vachier LaGrave was able to impose his will on the game. So what does that mean? That means the Petroff is still a deadly weapon and still a very difficult nut to crack, even though Black lost. Like I said, Black was probably better at some point in the game. So don't think the Petroff is refuted at all by this game. So anyway, I hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you guys. Please like and subscribe, of course. I love all you guys, the supports, the comments. I even like the bad comments, that people make for no reason. I'm just a regular dude that, been playing chess for a long time, and I've been, fortunate to defeat some, masters along the way, play some international masters, and but I try to stay humble, because if I was that strong, I'll be playing with Vachier LaGrave and those guys. But I'm just passing on my love of the game and knowledge to you guys. So like and subscribe, comment, keep it positive. Any requests, comments, I read them all, and I'll see you guys on the next video.